Testing. Okay, so I think we are live now. Audio check. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so I'm gonna get right into it then. Hello friends, thanks for tuning in. This is your Bitcoin and cryptocurrency updates, and we have actually some pretty big news today. So Tesla bought $1.5 billion in Bitcoin as Elon Musk is jumping on board with cryptocurrency. This just broke this morning, but I was at work today, so I am just reporting on it now. So basically what happened here is that Tesla over the past month or so has been buying Bitcoin over the counter so that they can get a position and diversify into a more safe inflation hedge. They did say in their filing that the purpose is to provide us with more flexibility to further diversify and maximize returns on our cash. So the suspicion here was that because something like 20% of all of the US dollars in existence have been printed this year, or this past year, I should say, there is concern with a lot of the bigger companies that holding cash is going to devalue, the cash is going to devalue from inflation. And so Bitcoin is a way to diversify that and kind of save your buying power. And so it seems like Tesla is the first really big name company to get on this. MicroStrategy did do this earlier, and we can actually look them up. Yahoo Finance. And you'll see MicroStrategy just kind of, their stock price took off. So a lot of people were talking about this, that a lot of people were talking about this, and that the only way Tesla, which has already been on a tear for the past year, could really keep up the momentum is by buying Bitcoin, because we all kind of know that Bitcoin is going to be pushing six figures, and probably looking at like a 5 to 10x from here potentially by the end of the year. So MicroStrategy was, over the past year, they bought Bitcoin back in summer, so I was like over here time frame, which as you can see is like, I guess we can't really see. Let's zoom in on this. 1 year. So they bought it back here when it was like $100 for MicroStrategy's stock price, and they have since just skyrocketed up to 1,000 as of today. So they're up quite a bit. That's a 10x from buying Bitcoin. A lot of people have talked about, and so now with Tesla buying in, having already seen this kind of giant pump, we are likely to see Tesla's massive rally continue. So that's one takeaway from this. And this isn't financial advice. This is just the opinions of me, and trying to provide you all the information you can use to make your own informed decision about what to invest in and when and how much. So Tesla bought Bitcoin, and this is kind of a big deal because they're such a big company, and they've been talking about this a while. Musk actually tweeted a while ago, last month, that Bitcoin is almost as bad as fiat money, and fiat, for those of you who don't know, is regular cash that we use. And so because it's just as bad, he says it's a good indication that they were looking at Bitcoin more seriously at that time. Another piece of information is that Bitcoin, with this news, actually pumped up to $43,730 per Bitcoin, which is pretty high, and the total amount was something like a 16% surge. So why isn't that highlighting? So a 16% surge in price of Bitcoin on this announcement. And when you go to the SEC filing, they actually also talk about not just that they bought $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, but let me quote them here. Moreover, we expect to begin accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment for our products in the near future, subject to applicable laws and initially on a limited basis, which we may or may not liquidate upon receipt. So basically what they're saying here is that they are going to be accepting Bitcoin for payments if you're going to buy a Tesla product, which is basically a car as of right now. And so there's actually some of this circulating now on the web that with the current price of Bitcoin at around 43K, it would only take 0.88 Bitcoins to buy an entry-level Tesla Model 3. So people are considering this. This is something that the company is doing now, and it's going to have quite a bit, well, I believe, and most people in the space believe, that this is going to have quite a bit of a domino effect, just because Elon Musk, who is the richest person in the world, and Tesla, which I think is the 7th most valuable company in the world, is investing in Bitcoin right now. The career risk for CEOs to buy Bitcoin has been significantly decreased, because what we're going to see is with Bitcoin, when you have bull runs, which we're in right now, you will typically see something like a 20x return. And so let's say we see nothing like that. Instead of 20x, we'll do 2x, which is basically 2 or 3x, which is basically 1 or 200%. If you are a company that does a good job and your company stock returns, say, 12%, 20%, that's really good for normal stocks. But if you're being compared now to another company like, say, Tesla, and just on their Bitcoin investments alone, they're able to turn a profit on their company of like 2 or 3x, which is 1 or 200%, then you're going to be getting compared to that, and you're going to look bad even though you did everything right, so to speak, except for investing in Bitcoin. And so this is going to push a lot of people to invest in Bitcoin just so they have some exposure to that potential upside. It looks like we have one question. You think we test 50K anytime soon? 50K for Bitcoin, I think, is very possible. In terms of, so I don't really want to give specific calls because no one knows where we're going for sure, but there is a neat chart you can use that is pretty popular in the crypto space, that it's called Cycle Repeat, and I will put the link in the description of this YouTube video, and the link is actually in my bio if you're on TikTok. But here on Cycle Repeat, you can actually use this chart to see what the predicted value of Bitcoin is going to be based on previous cycles. So Bitcoin goes through these cycles where it does a bull run, which is a major run up, something like 20x returns, and then you have a pullback, which is a pretty sharp decrease of like 90%. And then you have a consolidation where the price just sort of bounces up and down between certain levels, and then you go back to another bull run. And so based on those previous that cyclical nature and the previous cycles we've had, Cycle Repeat actually puts together what the predicted value of Bitcoin will be at certain times. So if you want to know what have an indication of what price people are thinking, they right now are predicting that we will be at 50K. We will hit 50K for the first time around within a couple weeks. This is what one of the more popular resources in the space is saying. That being said, I do think Bitcoin over the long term is going to have some pretty positive upside potential, especially if Tesla has invested, and if the dominoes really start to fall and other companies start to do the same. So that's that part. So let's get back to this really quick. So career risk. Yeah, so this is going to limit the career risk for a lot of CEOs, just because when Bitcoin is being adopted by someone like Tesla and Elon Musk, if another CFO or CEO or anyone really wants to invest company money in it, they now have kind of a look, this is what this person is doing, I'm following the leader. Because it's hard to be the first person to do something, whereas if you're just someone that just kind of follows the pack, you can't be as readily criticized, so to speak. This is actually kind of a funny psychological experiment. You could probably look up yourself. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. Dancing man alone to crowd. But basically what happens is when you have like one or two people that are dancing, no one's really going to start dancing. But once you have a couple people start to join, more and more people, and you have like an exponential rate of growth. And so Ivan on Tech actually talked about this if you watch his YouTube, where let me actually mute that. So like you've got this one person who's dancing, you could see in the middle, and no one's really doing anything, and no one's really joining in, and that's kind of like with Bitcoin investment, that not many people are going to be on board early on, and then over time someone might come over and start doing it too. You've got now two people dancing, and we're 1 minute in, three people dancing. So that's 1 minute in, three people in the first minute. Let's go to the second minute, and you'll see you go from 1 to 3 to just everyone. So what you have is like an exponential rate of growth and adoption. So now that Bitcoin is being invested in by Tesla, it stands to reason that within a fairly short time frame, people are going to start buying in. Let me just get to this question really quick. What does the peak of that prediction say short term? So the cycle repeat chart is predicting around 700K for this upcoming bull cycle. So that's the after halving top, and that's sometime in fall is what they're predicting. But again, I will link that, and you can find the link in my bio or about section. But I will link that in the description. So next part. So one of the other things is that with Bitcoin being in a bull run, where Tesla's already seeing a return on investment. So if they bought like on an average price between when that tweet we talked about before with Elon Musk back in December to now, that was an average of around 35K, and that means it being at 42K now, they would already be up 25% on the $1.5 billion purchase that they made. So that is not an insignificant amount. And with Tesla's market cap, the amount of gain that we've seen, I think it was like 2.5% bump in Tesla's stock price, the value returned has already covered the amount that they spent on Bitcoin. So that's kind of crazy to think about, that just by buying it, they already got more of a return on investment. And so there's always going to be some people doubting. We have a question here. Bitcoin is at 47K. Wow, 47K right now. So that is even more than this amount. So they're probably up to like 30, maybe like 30% return on investment, which is huge to buy something and then within like a month be up 30%. Especially in traditional finance and the stock market. In cryptocurrencies, you do tend to see volatility of that level, but we're talking about a Fortune 500, a Fortune 10 company, which is huge for them. So we're done with that. So another thing to note is a lot of people talk about how Bitcoin, it uses a lot of energy, but it actually turns out that most of the energy used for Bitcoin is sustainable because it is not economical to use non-renewable sourced energy for Bitcoin. And so another thing is that Tesla and Elon Musk really do their research. I mean, they need to. They run one of the biggest companies in the world, and their mission is to create an entire sustainable energy ecosystem. And so it would really, for the people that doubt that Bitcoin is sustainable or is more green than other current systems in place, it is a really big tell that Tesla, which is like this green company, is buying into it. But for it to stay here, yeah. So quick comment. That's true. For Tesla's stock price to kind of stay stagnant is a different story. Um, so they could definitely fall sometime soon. Do you not think around September time it will drop with the run up to Bitcoin halving? Yeah. So Bitcoin goes through these cycles, and so during let me pull up the cycle repeat chart again. Cycle repeat. So what we see typically is these run-ups, and then it reaches an all-time high way above anything we saw at the lower level, and then you have a retracement, a pullback that is sometimes up to like 90%. Most people are predicting like 70 to 80% because with the onboarding of all of these big financial institutions, and now with the onboarding of Fortune 500 companies, Bitcoin is going to be a little bit less volatile. How long? So you can check out this cycle repeat chart once we finish up, or in the link in my bio or in the description under the video. But the chart is predicting that the peak will happen around fall of next year, and personally, I use the stock to flow model to determine Bitcoin's fair value. So that is stock to flow. This description is also in the link in my bio, or the link to it, and I will provide it in the description. But what you have with actually let me pan, with the stock to flow model is a rough estimate of what the fair value of Bitcoin should be based on the available supply, the demand, and the energy used to mine new Bitcoin or to confirm transactions. And so right now we're hovering around 40K is a fair value. At the peak of this market, it's going to be around 82K. And at the next halving event, they're predicting around 97K. So I think anything for just a rough overview, my thought is pretty much anytime once the bull run is over, once we hit that peak next fall, or this coming fall, afterwards when it starts to drop in price, anything below this line I'm going to be averaging in, and anything above this line I'm kind of going to be averaging out, using dollar cost averaging. And so yeah, so that's the strategy I'm using. You should always do your own research, make your own decisions, and manage your risk for your particular situation. But these are two pretty good resources that I like to use. Okay, so there's quite a few questions. I want to get to those, but I want to finish up what we have on here. So I'll put a pin in that for now. So last thing, there is also concern that the government will ban Bitcoin, but this guy points out, Pomp, you could check him out on Twitter. He's really big in the crypto space. He points out that Fortune 500 companies now, Tesla, are holding Bitcoin. Financial institutions now, JP Morgan, are holding Bitcoin. Hedge funds are holding Bitcoin. We have Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust. Billionaires are holding Bitcoin. You got Mark Cuban, you've got Elon Musk probably at this point, and then politicians are holding Bitcoin. And this is I believe it's Janet Yellen, as well as the senator from Wyoming. Wyoming's senator is actually a big proponent of Bitcoin. So it's like everyone in the government is holding it, so it's very unlikely that they're going to ban it. So don't let that fear, uncertainty, doubt, or what you might hear in the abbreviation space, FUD, kind of deter you if you think this is a good choice for your personal situation. So all of this happened. Bitcoin, this was 5 hours ago. We did have a comment that said it's up to 47K right now, but Bitcoin surpassed 44K, which is like huge because we were at the 30 to 40K level, kind of consolidating for quite a while now, and it looks like we're going to trend to the upside moving forward. And So that's pretty much it for the Bitcoin updates. There's a couple of news things I've reported on TikTok and here on YouTube, and I want to go over really quickly. Um, so German authorities can't access Bitcoins worth $65 million seized from a hacker. Basically, someone hacked a whole bunch of systems and used them to mine Bitcoin, and was able to make $65 million from it. And when authorities seized his hardware, they don't have his password, so they cannot access the Bitcoin. So, and he has not given away his password. So this just goes to show how secure the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space system is. That without your passphrase or the password in the case of a hardware wallet or physical hardware device like a computer, no, they can't access your money at all. So whereas before the government can literally go in and take your money out of your bank account if they say they, need more taxes or something, here they can't. Even if they take the physical device that stores it, they can't access it unless they have that password and that passphrase, which is why it's so important to keep your passphrase private and your passwords secret. Um, so that's interesting piece of news, and I will include the link to this in the description. Last bit of news is in a project I'm eyeing kind of closely, Paralink network. I'm just going to go over this really quickly because I want to get to the... Actually, I can go over this a little after. I want to get to the questions first. Okay, so let's see. Do you think September... Yeah, so I think we kind of talked about, I think in the fall time frame, we're going to be seeing the top halving. But again, you should always do your own research, make your own decisions, and the resources I use, you should check out for yourself for the cycle repeat and the stock to flow model. Again, links in my bio or about section of my page, so you could check those out. I will put them in the description, but I think that's a good place to start. But keep in mind, always do your own research and feel comfortable if you invest in being able to lose what you've invested. And if someone asks, well, how did you lose your money? You don't want to be like, oh, I listened to some random person on the internet, or I found some random website on the internet. You want to be like, I did my research and I thought this was a good investment, if that does happen. How long do you expect? So generally the Bitcoin, how long? So the question is, how long do you expect it will crash, and when should I buy the dip? I typically would buy, and again, not financial advice, you should do your own research, but I will be buying any time we're under that stock to flow fair value level, because at that point Bitcoin will be undervalued, and I will probably be averaging out anytime we're a bit above that level, because if we do have a sudden breakout, I do want to have some exposure to it, so I won't be selling everything when we are above that, but I will be averaging out. This is, of course, looking at the similarities. Yeah, so the cycle repeat chart looks at the similarities of the 2017-18 bull run and subsequent crash. So they could be over or underestimating. Personally, I have observed that they do seem to overestimate based on previous years, and you can actually go to the chart, you can go back to certain dates, and you can see what they were predicting versus what actually happened. And I can actually pull that up right now just to give you a sample of that. That right now I look at a date just really far in the future so that it gives me the most up-to-date data. But let's say I want to look at something like 3 or 4 months ago, October. Okay, so this isn't a great example, but cycle repeat back, what is the date? October 10th. Cycle repeat was predicting that Bitcoin, as of today, February, is it the 8th? Okay, February 7th we'll use. They were predicting that the price of Bitcoin would be 15K, and that and the actual price as of yesterday was 38.8K. So they actually underestimated quite a bit in this situation. And you see it kind of diverged within a couple weeks. This was beginning of November. By middle or beginning of October. By middle of November, it diverged and Bitcoin just went on a tear, and Cycle Repeat kind of underestimated that one. So you do want to take this with a grain of salt. They're not always accurate, but it is kind of a good indicator, I think, to see where Bitcoin is likely to go over time, assuming we have a similar cycle to the previous bull run. Okay, so that's that question. Is 2021 nothing makes sense anymore? What are your thoughts on the GDP national debt ratio and the ominous big crash that everyone is expecting in the next 1 to 5 years? Okay, so what I wanna say is that having studied finance, traditional finance, more for longer than I've studied Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, everyone says there's going to be a crash. Like every year, there's going to be a crash, and if you let the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of that keep you from investing, you will miss out on some huge gains that you could otherwise have. There were always things going on. There were always wars. There were always just horrible things that made people think the market was going to go into the tanker, and sometimes it did. Like in 2008, it did happen. But usually, when everyone is saying things are gonna crash, it doesn't crash, and it's when everyone is saying things are going great. Like when you start taking, I mean, you're probably not taking an Uber now, but when you start taking an Uber, and your Uber driver, or you take a taxi and your taxi driver is giving you stock and investing advice, that's a red flag that everyone is piling into the market, and that it may be a good time to get out. But I also would not recommend, and again, this is not financial advice. You should always do your own research, make your own decisions about this. But personally, I don't think it's wise to pull everything out of the market if you think a crash is going to happen, because what if you're wrong and the market goes up a huge amount? There was actually a study done that if you missed, I think it's like the 10 days of greatest return in the market over a 30-year period, you had less than half the cash on hand as you would have if you just left your money in and let it ride. So you never want to just keep your money out if you're worried about something like that happening. But you do want to manage your risk. So never have invested more than you're willing to lose. Okay, nothing makes sense. Yeah, so GDP to national debt ratio is, I believe it's like the Buffett indicator, Warren Buffett's indicator of the strength of an economy and the overvalued or undervalued nature. Let's actually pull that up. GDP. Actually, let's just look up Buffett indicator. Yeah. So what you have in this is the total value of all public stocks in a country over the gross domestic product of a country. So right now, the GDP for the US in particular is probably going to be a bit low just because we're in a global pandemic. So that while a good indicator, is also probably not the most accurate indicator you want to use. And the value of the stock market is kind of shooting up, and I think a big part of that is because of the huge amount of printing that the Fed is doing. I think something like 20% of all US dollars in circulation have been made in the past year. So that's a huge amount of money printing, and so that is going to force that is propping up the stock market, which is increasing the value of this numerator, which is naturally going to make this market cap to GDP ratio kind of skyrocket. So keep that in mind when you're looking. I do think it is a good indicator that we are potentially overvalued, but at the same time, right now, because of the huge amount of printing that the Fed is doing, and because we're in a global pandemic, the chances that we'll have something really bad happen that didn't already happen, like we saw when the market crashed when the pandemic news first broke, I think is relatively low. but again, I could be entirely wrong on that one. So make sure you're taking everything with a grain of salt, and never invest more than you're willing to lose. Always do your own research. The whole shebang. Thanks, man. Okay, so that looks like that's all the questions we had for now. I think, yeah, so that's all those questions we had for now. So we're gonna go back here and finish up on the why is this not on the altcoin updates. So a project I'm actually watching that I'm kind of excited about is Paralink Network. It's a multi-chain Oracle platform for DeFi applications that is planning to be powered by Polkadot. So for those of you who don't know, oracles are basically things that translate the it looks like we got more questions that I missed. Oracles are things that translate what is on the blockchain to what is in real life, or what is in real life to what is on the blockchain. So say you want to bet on a sporting event. You want to bet that one team wins, but you don't want to trust a gambling thing because they'll take too much of the money. You can actually use an oracle and a blockchain to bet directly with the other person through the blockchain, which will hold the money, and the oracle will tell the blockchain who won. So this is a really useful application to make blockchains more applicable to everyday life and real world use cases. So the thing with this one is it's on Polkadot, which is another blockchain that is kind of exploding right now. And the biggest oracle that we have for comparison is Chainlink, which I kind of missed the boat on, because Chainlink way back in like 2019, 2018 was like 50 cents per link, and it is up to $25 now. So what is that? That's like 50x. So if you invested like $1,000, you'd have 50,000 now. And so that to me is like a great return. And Chainlink is on the Ethereum blockchain, and Paralink is going to be on the Polkadot blockchain. And the thing with this that they're not listed yet, but the thing that I wanted to go over is the use of Ethereum. We have about a $200 billion market cap for Ethereum, and Polkadot only has a $20 billion market cap. But Chainlink, which is on Ethereum, is down here at $10 billion. So Chainlink is about, what is that, 1/20th of the total value of Ethereum. So if Paralink on Polkadot is like the same amount of value of the Polkadot ecosystem, then a reasonable value of Paralink is going to be about $1 billion, right? Because Polkadot is 20 billion right now. So once Paralink launches, and we can actually go to their timeline, once Paralink launches and their ERC20 tokens are available, this could be a pretty good opportunity for kind of like Chainlink 2.0, because if you missed this 50-cent Chainlink and you want to get in on a similar opportunity, if Paralink launches and is not valued at that level, there's a good chance that they will shoot up. And so this is something I'm kind of watching closely, and I just wanted to share with you all. I think that's everything I wanted to cover, so I'm just going to go through the questions now. Let's see. Okay, so makes sense more. What are your thoughts on the... Yeah, so the GDP to national the GDP to national debt ratio. Okay, so that's different than the Buffett indicator. That was my mistake. So we can actually look at that. Yeah, GDP. I think that is an issue. GDP to national debt. Right now, we are in a bit of a murky situation just because, wow, it's just been, yeah, we're up over 100%, which is not great. I think the biggest issue here is just the money printing that we have. Well, it's two big issues actually. We're in a pandemic, and so naturally economic activity is going to decrease, most heavily in things like restaurants and public places like movie theaters. So that's gonna bring a significant amount of that revenue down. One thing to note though is that a lot of people are moving more to online shopping, so it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to lose that much there. But with all of the people in those other industries, restaurants and movie theaters and such, being out of work, without government support, that is going to continue to be an issue. And the support the government is providing right now is just printing a whole bunch of money and throwing it at corporations, which is increasing the money in the circulating supply of money. So because we're in a pandemic and because people aren't going places to buy stuff as much, the velocity of money is relatively low. So this probably won't be too much of an issue until people really start buying things and the velocity of money increases. And if that happens, we could see significant hyperinflation coming up. But you never know what the future holds. So that is something to keep in mind. Yeah, there hasn't been a single country in history that has recovered economically from a higher ratio than that. It is kind of concerning. A lot of people are saying this is a big issue. I personally am hedging my bets with Bitcoin, and that's why, because of the inflation issue. So that's something I'd recommend. If you follow Mike Malone, he does a really good job of explaining this whole system, and he recommends gold and silver. So that's one option you have, but that is something that's concerning to see. Let's see. I think that is all of the questions we had. So thank you all for tuning in. I will end the stream now. So take care. See the links in the description if you want to learn more. And thank you all. Okay, I don't know if this is going to go through, but one last thing. Please, if you found this informative or helpful, remember to smash that like button. Hit subscribe, bell button, notifications, all. Hopefully you find that useful. Hopefully you found this helpful. It would really help out the channel. There's no VIP thing or anything, just subscribing, turning on notifications, and I'll post everything here. So thank you all. Take care. Smash that like button.